first, and then Tom will open our meeting
Sure.
second.
So I'd like to call this joint special meeting with the Dover Select Board and the Wilmington Select Board. I'm calling the Dover Select Board to order at 6:01 p.m. on January 12th.
And I'll call the Wilmington Select Board to order. Welcoming in all of the public that's here this evening. And if anyone wishes to speak about something not related to the agenda, I ask you to do so now or forever hold your peace. None being heard, let's get started.
Wait, I was asking you a question. I just wanted to say to Vicky that I'm sorry that you lost your father and that I knew him and he was one of the sweetest people I ever met. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say I'm sorry.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Julie or Amanda, who will be sharing your screen so I can get that for you?
That will be me.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you again to the select board members who approved the funding for this strategic plan that we presented to you last June. Thank you very much. And now here we are with the final 5-year strategic plan report. So we did hire Charrette out of Virginia. And today we have Amanda Carter, which can you just like wave your hand? Amanda is the senior project manager there. And Julie Garrell, who is up in the upper, well, it depends on where she is on your screen. And she is the chief, she calls herself the curiosity officer. And she's really good at that, asking lots and lots of questions. So, and I see that we also have Rich Santos with us. Rich, can you wave your hand? Rich is the from MediaWorks, which is a partner with Charrette. And he has he works on the digital part, right? Is that the best way to say it? Of the advertising? Great. Okay, and is that all of the team?
Mm-hmm.
Julie?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. And so we're just going to ask that we hold all questions until the end, just because we might answer your questions during the presentation. So, so Julie, can you please take it over?
Sure, thank you. Amanda, I'm gonna let you screen share. But while we're waiting, I want to thank, on behalf of the Charrette team and MediaWorks, I want to thank the Bytown Marketing Committee, all the folks who helped engineer a very efficient and what I would say a very highly effective process. You helped us get to know the community, both in terms of boots on the ground as well as people to talk to. It was pleasant, it was productive, and we thank you for making it so, because I hope it's reflected in this plan. So as people have questions, just jot those down. We'll circle back to anything we haven't addressed. Okay, so we're going to take you through the highlights. There is a much thicker document that can be circulated with support in some additional sections. Okay, Amanda, if you would advance, please. Great. Okay, so we're going to talk about lots of components that holistically go into a marketing plan. We're going to start out with sort of how to actually administer the plan from your vantage point, how to fund it and things like that need to be addressed. We're going to talk about the destination in terms of what it will stand for as a brand. Then we're going to start to get into the nuts and bolts of how do we bring that brand and the destination it represents to life tactically, strategically. We'll get into lots of media details, and very importantly, we'll get into the ability of those media programs and other tools that the industry uses to track the effectiveness of your future investment. Okay. Next slide, please. Great. So these plans can start anywhere, but we learned, and let me back up by saying, we embarked on sort of 3 main methodologies of learning about you, but in addition to actually visiting and having our own experience as tourists, albeit in COVID. We did a stakeholder engagement study where we interviewed quite a few members throughout your community. We did a bit of that when we were there. We did a competitive audit, which is our fancy way of saying we looked at the websites and the marketing plans of quite a few destinations at the state level, at the New England level, and then at the township level, if you will, in Vermont, but throughout New England. We wanted to know the reason we do that is why are travel consumers, what are the messages they're receiving, what are the dreams they're imagining when they go online to try to think about where to go and then to get down into the tactical trip planning. The last thing we did is, we looked at the campaign you ran in the past. We looked at your website, held all that up to kind of the industry standards that we're used to and that we learned about in that audit. And so those 3 methodologies inform this plan. Important as a starting point for you all to know that, we look at the destination as one that offers a great deal of, sort of Vermont stopping point legitimacy. It's just full of the attributes that travel consumers seek in a New England and a Vermont specific vacation. And despite having all that, the area, the Bytown area, the Deerfield Valley area feels like a well-kept secret. So there's a great deal of potential here that we want to help you unearth, and we're naming that in this plan. Also important to note, and it goes back to this quote, increasingly, and we know this from our work with destinations around the country, destination marketing organizations, DMOs, and to some extent chambers of commerce, they're no longer simply running websites and offering booking engines and putting vacation guides together. They're not simply a touch point for travelers to say, oh, okay, I can get everything I need there. Their role is evolving and expanding into really experience management organizations. They're herding their stakeholders together, they're educating their stakeholders, and they are using technology to help stakeholders and chambers and DMOs deliver very personalized customer experience. So next slide, please. Great. So the ultimate success of your future program is going to be contingent upon communicating your tourism product offerings in a manner that is expected by the members of your geographic audiences and your target consumers. So let's think about where they are. They're in major markets and suburbs around them throughout, the New York, New England, Connecticut, all the usual suspects. These are sophisticated consumers. All of us, and those consumers in particular, are highly experienced in dealing with technology across retail categories, not just in their travel planning histories. They have a high level of service. They expect personalized algorithms to serve them what they didn't already know they needed. They expect packages to come the next day and reservations to be easy and so forth. So this is who we need to market to. They're tech savvy, they're digitally sophisticated, And they're dependent upon online commerce now more than ever because of the pandemic. So as a starting point, we believe your destination going forward, if it is to become a sort of a more top of mind, making the cut, getting to the table of vacation considerations for folks in the spring, summer, and other shoulder season planning, is going to need to identify a dedicated person, maybe a couple, to be responsible for the ongoing plan implementation and oversight. There's too much to do if you want to really compete in this marketplace to simply have one of you all responsible for remembering to place ads and using the same ads you have. So dedicated personnel is an important consideration so you can get everything done. And we'll talk about what that everything is as we go forward. One of the key jobs for that person and for all of you to sort of support would be for the development of a very high quality consumer communication campaign. And that campaign is going to depict your destination, this, the Deerfield Valley, Southern Vermont, in its best possible light. It's going to speak with a consistent voice, a consistent tone, consistent use of high quality imagery that is indelibly associated with you all and not lost as, oh, it just looks like another New England destination. So that's your brand voice coming through. And you're going to need to, through this dedicated person and your own support, obtain the necessary funding to really implement the plan. So those are kind of the three important stepping stones before you actually get into execution. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so now we have talked about personnel. We've talked about this overarching need to develop a consistent brand voice and a campaign that kind of resonates throughout everything you say. Here are the strategic imperatives. All right, so let's start with this idea of brand. Everybody uses the word brand. I think the simplest, most consistent definition, it's not a logo and it's not a website, but it is the way people think about you and talk about you when you're not there, when they're not in market with you. It's how they would describe a vacation in your part of Vermont to somebody who's never been there. So we need to help them along. We need to kind of feed them the video and the still images and the words that give them the tools to recommend it and to process it and sort it in the context of all the other destinations they know of or they're considering. To do that, we develop an idea of what the brand should stand for, and I'll take you through that in a second. And we also help develop a consistent voice, language, photos, video that is woven through your advertising outreach, your digital ads. Rich and Amanda will talk about those. A website redesign, and we'll talk more about that. It's not just a website for the sake of listing things, but it is a redesign that we're recommending. A social media presence is just required. Daily updates, daily posts that encourage sharing. Things you can do to remarket to people who have visited your website and other places in the destination and remind them that you're still there and what they could do. Media relations and somebody who can really kind of use that brand voice to bring the stakeholders into the process. And so they are also reiterating that same voice. So let's talk about the brand again on the next slide, please, Amanda. This is a starting point. This is not the language that we would use in the ads necessarily or on the website, but it's kind of how people might think about you. So as a placeholder, we're calling you all the foothold of the Green Mountains. And here's kind of why we're using that language right now. It is in fact your geography. You all are the first important point for visitors when they're driving to Vermont. It's a geographic advantage, a competitive advantage. You're closer to get to than most of your competitors. Leveraging some relationship with Vermont in this instance, the Green Mountains, automatically delivers so much equity to you. I mean, people have impressions of what Vermont offers, and they feel a connection with it, undoubtedly. So we wanted to build the Green Mountains into that. And like any good brand that is recalled and that is felt strongly about, there needs to be an emotional benefit. It's not just words. It needs to be words that hit my heart, words that I want to kind of almost wear proudly as a badge. Like, yeah, I follow them on social media and I bought that t-shirt there. It's an expression of self, of how we want people to see us and how we want to see ourselves. So this foothold really suggests that it's a secure position from which progress can be made. That's the dictionary definition. And that communicates balance, and that communicates a reminder to travelers to come here, find balance, find serenity, which is what people are seeking in a Vermont vacation. So that's our strategic recommendation for your brand. Next slide, please. We would recommend that you take that strategic brand articulation, and again, as I said, weave it through all of your communications. Let's talk about the website, which is a critical tool for destinations, but not the only tool. It needs to be branded. It needs to migrate from being a resource that lists everything you have, your restaurants, your accommodations, your attractions, and it needs to be wrapped up in a package that's compelling, that's branded, and that answers the question, the overarching question, why do I want to plan a trip there? It needs to begin communicating when we're just dreaming about planning a trip, as opposed to when we've already decided. And that's really kind of where there's a bifurcation in the road between a Chamber of Commerce website and a true travel destination website. Chamber websites have everything, particularly from the locals' perspective. And a lot of that content is germane to a tourism website. But what the tourism website does so brilliantly is it romances the destination, you know, for just the simplest way of saying it. It allows travelers to start to dream about why they want to go there and how that place is different from all the other places on the list. So that's the website redesign. Next slide, please. Some of the things that we strongly recommend be incorporated into your tourism website redesign. And this could be in the first year, but also again in the second year. It doesn't have to be everything all at once. The navigation, if you look at kind of the way somebody comes into your current website, tries to figure out how to plan a trip, it just needs to be more intuitive. It needs to kind of lead the consumer on a journey and invite them in. You know, lots of tourism websites do that by beautiful video and imagery, lots of it that they can browse, recommended itineraries, things like that, photo galleries, video for the landing page, recommendations, or even interviews with locals about, well, here's why I call this home. And it's really kind of telling a secret to the traveler, and increasingly younger travelers really want to do what is unexpected. So it brings them into the fold that way. Everything is standardized. It's easy to get to websites. It's easy to make, you know, anticipate where you want to stay and what it's going to be like and see yourself there. There are upgraded kind of experiential sections. What is it like to mountain bike through? What is it like to take those hiking trails that are in your website, but you're almost taking somebody onto a trail and sharing little animal sightings or historic markers with them. And it allows you to capture data about everybody visiting your website, because you're inviting them not only to sign up for a new e-newsletter and a vacation guide, but you're building tools to capture what their interests are. And you can begin to track how they spend time in your site, which we'll talk about later. Next slide, please. We think that more imagery and videography needs to be incorporated. Again, it tells stories, and today's travel consumer and consumer of virtually everything is just very visual, short attention span. It's not the same consumer. It's not the book reading consumer only. It's the click consumer, and we need to cater to that type of mindset. Next. The investment in new photography and in video, and that would go into the website, would also serve the purposes of creating a voice and a personality for your destination in social media. Every competitor we looked at, and studied in your audit had a very strong social media presence. And I continue to follow a lot of them, like the Berkshires and the White Mountains. They every day they invite me there with these gorgeous photos, intriguing captions, and every once in a while I'll even post a comment to see if they're listening to me, because social media is a relationship, and very often, more times than not, they'll write back to me in a very personalized way, or they'll give me affirmation. So it builds out your brand voice. It is aspirational, and it utilizes your investment yet again. And it is an invitation to share, to have a conversation. It solidifies and builds relationships, and that's very important. Next slide, please. Earned media is our industry's way of saying, what can you do that doesn't cost money? How can you get people to pay attention to you without paying for a media placement or an ad? So that's public relations is another way to say that. And so in the future, not necessarily year one, but we think beginning in year one and leading into year two, it would be important to cultivate relationships with travel writers and travel influencers, particularly those coming from your feeder markets. Invite them to your destination, not just to roam around themselves, but really to, again, to have your dedicated staff lead them through an itinerary, spend time with them. Many of them are going to capture video and stills that they're going to post live, and they're going to invite all their followers in. They'll follow up with articles. Your stakeholders will be a part of those programs. So special menus, chefs or brewmasters coming out and spending time with them, special mountain bike tours, all of the things that this audience is interested in, you can host them and amplify your message. Next slide, please. And finally, again, not a year one item, because this takes a bit of planning, and it does take a dedicated person on the ground to help engineer this on your end. But all of the destinations that we looked at, they have invitations on their websites to bridal planners, event planners, families of, planning nuptials, to fill out a simple form or make a phone call or send an email, and then in turn they'll receive dedicated information about venues and about resources and so forth. So you're already hosting a fair number of these. Particularly this past year, it's been interesting because the big urban weddings have been canceled. So you're a very logical destination. And so we believe there's under-realized revenue capacity for your stakeholders here. So next slide, please.
Thank you, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
So as we approach the challenge of sort of distilling all of these strategic mandates that Julie just took you through into a cohesive and effective media plan on behalf of the destination, there were some considerations that we took into account when approaching what exactly that looks like. One of those is the travel planning process. Now, in a nutshell, this is essentially the process, the procedure that the average consumer takes when looking to book their next vacation, their next travel experience. And what we want to look at here is engaging potential visitors at the more top of and middle funnel areas here, so that we can affect their decision-making process earlier on in the game. So top of funnel is, the purpose there is really to drive inspiration. That's where your traveler is going to see an ad, a post, or hear about the destination from a family or a friend. And then we want to simply, sort of take that opportunity to serve ads and touch them at different points throughout their day to nudge them further on down here in the middle of the funnel, which is where the traveler is going to start to show interest, read reviews, look at maps, learn more about what to do in the destination. And then bottom funnel there is after they've selected, booked, and they are planning experiences there in the destination. So for purposes of budget effectiveness, you'll see later on when Rich takes you through the media plan that most of our efforts here are going to be focused top to middle funnel so that we can sort of capture our audience early and affect that decision. Another thing we've made sure we've taken into account with media is just strategic alignment between everything that Julie just talked to you about and how that folds in exactly with the media execution. So we want to make sure that we are leveraging the visual beauty of Southern Vermont. We want to build brand equity through trusted, admired travel resources. So you'll see some influencer marketing layered in to your efforts. We want to identify and target segment overlap within channels so that we're making sure that we are touching our target consumers more than once. And of course, we want to appeal to the inspirational emotion of weekend travelers. And this is how we think we're going to get that done. But before we get further into exactly what the media plan looks like, I want to talk to you a bit about your target audience personas, which is a very, very fancy way of just saying that these are the groups of people that we feel the destination is most going to resonate with. First is going to be 3 generations. This is your multi-generational traveler. These are groups of people who are traveling with mom, grandma, the kids, and effectively what we want to do is reach women between the ages of 25 to 54 with a general household income of 100K plus. And that's just because our research reflects really that women are the decision makers in the household for this group of people. So these are going to be members of that active multi-generational family in search of experiences that are going to allow them to relax, reconnect, and share togetherness, something for everyone. Our next opportunity audience is going to be the shippies. These are going to be adults between the ages of 25 to 54 with a household income of 75K plus. A little bit less of a household income here because these are going to be people who are traveling in groups but without children. They're looking to strengthen their relationships or friendships in a drivable regional destination that's going to allow them to have a change of pace from that hyper-connected new normal that we're all sort of living in here. Next, we've got the adventurer. We envision this target audience being primarily male focused between the ages of 18 and 34. This is going to be the traveler that's really looking to have amazing outdoor experiences there in the destination. So we've lowered the household income there to 50K plus, and they're going to be traveling alone. They want to enjoy those outdoor activities, hiking, mountain biking, endurance, cross country, water sports, you name it. And so these are really what we feel are going to be your 3 sweet spots in terms of target audience personas. I'm going to let Rich yield the floor and let Rich talk a bit about the media plan. Rich?
Sure. Thank you, Amanda. So basically what we try to do with the media plan after we walk through all of that wonderful strategic work and target work is find channels that will get the most bang for your buck while meeting the sort of requirements that we set up in terms of strategy and target. If we flip to the next one, Amanda, we'll start talking about how. So this is the look at the proposed first year of the media plan. We have what we'll call, and I'm going to go a little bit out of order here, 2 of the main channels that are what we'll call always on. And those are the 2 middle ones, Teads and Facebook and Instagram. I'll start with Teads. It's a video network. And basically, you can show your video across a network of thousands of sites to specific targets that are of interest. So if you imagine the 3 targets that Amanda just walked through, We can carve out those audiences across a network of thousands of sites and show the video at the best time for the best price to all of these folks within those targets. We can also develop additional targets to test as well. That will be kind of an awareness layer that we run throughout the campaign. Think of it as part of the base. The other part of the base is Facebook and Instagram, two of your most popular, most visual social channels. So the reason we're there is because they're the most proven channels, they're the biggest, most visual. We can target the way we want to. Again, think of those 3 targets that Amanda walked through, and any other additional targets that we want to think about testing. Then we have, back up to the top, our influencer recommendation. So in addition to the visual power of the travel industry, there's also a lever there, like we talked about earlier, word of mouth. So whether it's an immediate family member, friend, or someone that you happen to follow on one of your social channels, like an influencer, these types of touch points can help nudge somebody to make a decision to visit your destination. So Division D, just think of Division D as sort of an influencer management company. It's hard at this point with so many influencers out there for us to reach out specifically to one. What we can do is reach out to a Division D and say, here are our goals, here are our audiences, and what we're trying to do. Can you help connect us to the best influencers to reach these folks? So we have 3 posts and for 3 different influencers set up. It's very flexible. We can, align it with events or whatever. And what we do is we kind of roll out the red carpet for these folks, invite them in, let them experience the wonderful destination, and then let them sing the praises to their followers. And if you look at the 3 posts, we might be able to find 3 different folks that line up to the 3 different audiences. That's one way we could look at it, or 3 different events, however we want to do it. Very flexible. And then down at the bottom, Twitter and Snapchat. These are our 2 test channels. We always want to have a spirit of testing and learning and how these channels might work. The reason we selected Twitter was to support events. Twitter has a very a breaking news and announcement feel to it. It's often how we use it in media. And so what you can do with Twitter is push messaging out beyond your organic natural followers to specific desired followers and really amplify your message about specific events at a higher level. And then Snapchat at the bottom there. Just like all media, social media has been fragmenting for a long time. So 20 years ago, we had Facebook. Now we've got several new channels that are emerging, and Snapchat's not even as new as a TikTok, for example, which is more recently hot and in the news. But Snapchat is a great way to reach a younger audience. It also is very visual as well, not as proven as Facebook and Instagram. That's why we've got a smaller budget there and a test budget to see if this is something that can move the needle with our audiences. And just very broadly, we tend to put the bigger budget in the solid support kind of beams of the plan, like I talked about, TEEDS and Facebook, Instagram, which we are, we know are going to reach a lot of the target, perform well, and push the awareness. And then, a larger portion of the budget towards the influences, which we feel are absolutely essential. And then if you look at the smaller budgets, they're the 2 at the bottom in tests, just broadly how that's laid out. And then when we look ahead year 2, 3, and 4, just think about these years as a few principles. One of them is to continue to build the programs that are working well. It may be the influencer network. Do we want to expand that and make it bigger so that we can get more good results based on what we saw before? we start to bring in more initiatives. We talked about weddings, conferences. As we start to grow and build our buzz, we can bring in some more specific initiatives there. And then we also have perhaps another target that we want to add in year 2, the retirees with time, that we didn't talk about here, but based on budget, we decided to focus on the 3 that Amanda talked through. And then as you get into year 3 and 4, we again continue to test new channels, maybe OTT, which is just streaming TV, continue to expand the influencer network, but all the while we keep in mind that, a year and a half ago, a channel like TikTok wasn't really, top of mind. New channels can really catch fire quickly. So we want to keep a kind of a flexible approach and continue to be able to invite new channels in that we may not even see here. So just think of it as continuing to sculpt the plan to make it stronger based on the data that we have. And then also sort of adding some wings to it just to test and learn and continue to get smarter and better.
So important to note that the budget numbers that Rich just went through with media are not inclusive of the monies that it would take to build out creative, to get photography done, to hire people, to do anything except for run media. So we really wanted to sort of give a 360-degree view of your budget by year in years 1 through 5, inclusive of hiring the staff that Julie touched on a little bit earlier on in the presentation. So I don't want to spend all the time it would take to go through each line item for each year, but I do want to have these numbers here. And if anyone's got any questions, we are more than happy to run through those I guess at the conclusion of this presentation. But for now, this is a snapshot of how we envision the budget laying out years 1 through 5. And before I advance, I just want to note that year 1 has no media investment, as you'll note. We anticipate, well, the way that we've built out the plan in conjunction with the team there is that year 1 would be used as sort of a planning year to build out infrastructure and redesign the website, capture that photography, videography, build out the campaign creative, and be ready to launch really strong at the top of year 2 with media. So that's a little note there for year 1. All right. So as we move into the very important subject of tracking and measurement of the media plan, we all want to know how effective it's going to be and how we are going to track its effectiveness once launched. So to sort of venture into that area and begin to answer that question, I first want to talk about the differences between primary and secondary indicators. These are essentially the ways in which we would measure your campaign to be able to let you know exactly how effective it is, how much visitation we are affecting there in the destination. And so first of all, I want to talk about primary indicators. So primary indicators are really sort of that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. Those are the things that are going to give us really direct lines of ROI between our marketing efforts and heads and beds there in the destination. And so, that's exactly what we would like to be shooting towards for you all. And then secondary indicators, which we'll also talk about, are much more of the indicators that we're currently tracking. They're very, also valuable metrics, but they require a little bit of imagination to be able to say, we are actually increasing occupancy in the hotels. We are putting people in the restaurants, and we're getting them to the destination. So I know that sounds a little bit hazy. We'll get into exactly what this looks like. So primary indicators, some of these things here, these are just essentially different companies, which we could look at partnering with on your behalf to bring us closer to being able to say, our marketing campaign for FY 2021, FY 2022 has affected X, Y, and Z amount of visitation there in the destination. It is going to definitely require some additional investment. And so that's something that's important to keep in mind. But these are the ways in which we can really draw those ROI, those better lines of ROI for you. And these are essentially just different versions of data aggregate companies. So they are companies that collect consumer data and track things like location, mobile location, and things like that, that will let us know if we have targeted a specific consumer that is a member of your target audience, and we have sent them ads and we've marketed to them, and then they have essentially either booked a trip to the destination or physically showed up there. So these are some of the companies in which we can partner to kind of get that information. But again, this would require some additional spend. Secondary indicators, on the other hand, are some things that also get us closer to being able to judge the effectiveness of your campaign, but not exactly as close as your primary indicators. And so I want to pause here for a second and let Rich take over, because these are some of the secondary indicators that he's built out to be able to track the current media plan.
Sure. So if you all remember the flow chart that we went through, this really is just built off of that type of media that we've recommended in the flow chart. So video completion, how many people, the percentage of people that watch the video all the way through. Social ads have a number of different metrics that we can look at. Anything from a retweet to clicking through to the site. Video completions on social as well. And then influencers, we look at what we'll just call buzz, which is the amount of engagement combined from a social post and an influencer pushing the content out on your behalf, which could be, some of you are very familiar with some of these comments, the engagement, earned impressions. So, when people will repost this stuff, that's essentially free media there, so which is great. But remember that, we want to keep in mind, and as a paid advertising guy, I always want to make sure to say this, that paid advertising is part of the, big picture of what's driving your engagement. So we want to look at, on the back end, some of the business KPIs, key performance indicators, increase in revenue, increase in bookings, and then increase in site engagements in general. A lot of people might see some of these ads and then go search for you, and then click through on a Google search that is not specifically directly attributable to some of our paid media. So we try to take a really holistic view of all these metrics that are relevant to showing that the advertising is working. It's really hard to track someone from point A to point B. In other words, first touch point all the way to when they book. It's not linear. They sometimes try to talk themselves out of it and come back 2 weeks later and can't get out of their crawl and search again, and they look on the computer and then they book on the phone. So it's just really hard to connect all of this. So we optimize our media specifically to what you see in the middle column there, because directionally this is saying that our target is engaging positively with our ads, and which should lead to increased business and action on the site in the back end.
I hope that makes sense and sort of makes things a little bit more clear. But to Rich's point, I think that's really the key there with your secondary indicators. They're things that let us know that our target audiences are engaging with the campaign on several different levels, and that engagement should, and that's the operative word there, that engagement should result in bookings and travel to the destination. But we're just not able to say definitively that it has in the case of secondary indicators, which is not the case with your primary indicators. So
yeah, and I'll just add too, this is where we can, in that middle column, we can say, you know what, that Snapchat test is not working based on what we're trying to deem as success for Snapchat. And then as a team, we can say, where do we want to reallocate that budget so that we can cut our losses and continue to move in a positive direction, which is another really important part of that middle section.
Perfect.
And then, numbers tell a story, but, to get there, we like to make it as visual as possible. But the other important thing about this dashboard that we partner with a company called Datarama, which can ingest all of the data, including, sales data if we want to, that kind of back end data can also go in there, along with media results. And the reason we do that is so that we can get as close as we can to the full picture that Amanda and I were just talking about on the other slide. We don't want to look at just Snapchat or the influencer program in a vacuum. So to be able to blend our data and look at the trends and see how we're doing, learn about seasonality and any other pieces that can make us better week over week, month over month, year over year. That's what the dashboard is for. And it's also, if someone can't sleep at night, they can go in and just look.
And to be clear here, this dashboard, this is data that you're seeing here that would come out of the dashboard, not go into. So you could log on and see how the media efforts are playing out by viewing the dashboard. So this is information that you would be getting, you would be receiving as opposed to putting in.
Yes, and it is user friendly. We don't just kind of lay it out there. We meet, we talk about it, we define all the terms in here and everything, and make it as user friendly as possible.
So Julie, did you want to take a moment here and just sort of breeze through the strategic prioritization and what and when?
Sure. Go ahead. All right, so this is an eye chart, but it's not going to be a test. This is, again, a recommendation. And I think the biggest point to take away from this, and I'll break it down a little bit, is we don't expect you to do everything all at once. So we created a tiered approach as a way to recommend what was most important and where to kind of begin to do this. So again, it's all fluid. It's not year by year so much as it is sort of priority by priority. Once you have adequate funding and labor, right, man and woman power to execute in a efficacious and thorough way, then we think it would be really important to begin with, capturing the stories and the experiences and executing against this recommended brand. That would involve hiring a creative partner. We're referring to that as an agency. And it's going to take more research to figure out who the locals are that need to be featured and what the priority visuals need to be in video. So these are all things we can help you identify or help you create, but any process you pick is fine as long as your end result starts to communicate a sense of destination and place, and does so in a way that differentiates you from the wealth of New England destinations available. So an agency partner would certainly be worthy in terms of helping you bring your brand to life in the advertising you create, to place in all the vehicles that Rich just talked about. You will also need a photographer and a videographer. Often that's the same person who can help you capture everything you need to fill the website, to go into the advertising, and to flesh out your social media. So that's a one-time charge with multiple purposes, the cost of which is sort of amortized over your whole campaign. You'll need a media placement specific planning and placement and tracking partner. Again, that's something that MediaWorks could help you do if you choose to pursue that relationship. The partner would be a true partner in terms of sort of helping you continue to assess when to upgrade, what messages to place. Again, Rich and Amanda talked about continuous tracking. So you can place an ad, but you're going to place multiple headlines and multiple visuals, and tracking is going to allow you to know which of them is most effective. So you amend and adjust your plan as you go to optimize your investment. Your partner can help you do that. The website is a critical first step for you, as we've talked about, and there our dedicated web developers and designers, we can put you in touch with ones we've worked with, and it's a web designer as well as somebody who's actually going to build out the particulars. Again, people who have destination experience would be the best bet. And you will need to work with your agency to develop what we call a content calendar. So to have an effective, continuous social media voice, which is going to allow you to build relationships with a ever expanding base of prospective visitors. You're going to need to set a content calendar up front. So you're not just inventing what you're going to post, you know, on a season specific basis, an event specific basis, and a stakeholder business specific basis when you want to post what pictures, what captions, what video. And it goes on, but that's a really good starting point. And many of the other things we talked about would then be considered tier 2 priorities. And I'll stop there and take you through all of those. So,
Any
should
questions?
we turn it over to you guys?
Yes. Let me turn the presentation, the screen back over, and we can.
We must have some questions.
Can we go back to the screen that had the breakout of the expenses?
Was muted. Sure. One moment.
Sarah, you're talking about the full, the 5 years?
I'll know it when I see it.
Okay.
That's it. So the staff salary that you're noting there, is that the person that the Bytown hires specifically to run this program?
Yes, yes. That
Okay.
would be, the vision is year 1 and 2 is one person. I'm sorry, years 1, 2, and 3 is that one person. And then, you know, the vision would be that that one person would likely need an extra pair of hands in years 4 and 5. And so there's like a support person built into those years, which is why that number is higher for those last plan years.
Okay.
And just to add a little bit to that, you know, our idea would be that they would be, you know, and we would have to, you know, figure this all out, but they would, you know, be at the chamber office. And that's where they would be held so that there's communication with the website, etc.
Okay.
In terms of the year, when it starts and stops as a calendar year, because we really start like in Thanksgiving to Columbus Day. I mean, do we have a timing aspect to this? When the start and stop is?
So Dan, I just want to correct you on one thing. The Bytown marketing has focused on summer. So we start usually our campaigns in May, you know, April,
Yeah.
May, June, July, through the summer is normally what we have done in the past. And we kind of run on the, you know, the apron strings of Mount Snow for the winter months.
Mhm.
But Julie and Amanda, you might have something to add to that.
No, I think that's, you hit it on the head. If I don't, I'm not. Julie, do you have anything? Or Rich?
No, I'm fine.
Right. Is that it for the budget?
So we're looking at redoing photography, videography every other year. Am I right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm going to add to the recurring photography, videography cost. You know, it's not a mandate that you do it every year, but inevitably new products come on board, you know, new stakeholder offerings, new trails, and just a new way of approaching the destination based on insight you get from operating a plan. So we put it there as a way for you to build out a sense of freshness, a sense of growth, an invitation to bring folks who have visited back because they haven't done everything. So you need this newness factor. So
Yes.
that's just kind of the thinking behind that.
Okay.
So I have a question about the budget. Web redesign, we're doing that twice, year 1 and year 4. Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. The website redesign is the big numbers there. Well, it's both in year 1 and 4 to your point, but there's the year 1, and then we anticipate year 4, much like your photography and videography, where there's going to be new plugins. We'll need to refresh the website with new technologies and different levels of interactivity. And so we work really closely with a web developer who really thought it would be a strong recommendation to just go ahead and build in a website refresh during year 4.
And year 1 starts in February? Is that correct?
No, I think you're referring to the media plan?
Yes.
Right. So that's what it was a little wonky there. So year 1 of the strategic plan actually has no media involved. It's an infrastructure building and planning year. So year 1 of the media plan, which is actually plan year 2, does begin in February.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that would be 2022.
That helps.
Not like this month, or sorry, next month.
And the main reason that we're starting in February is because we want to capture the people that are already here and love us.
Yes.
So just so I understand, I mean, you sort of explained how staff salary is going to work, but just I'd like to understand through this budget who's doing what. You sort of explained we have to hire a photographer, a videographer to do that, but I mean, like who's going to do brand development, who's going to do campaign creative, just so I understand who the players are and where the money's going.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all, Julie, did you want to? I didn't.
No, these are outside resources that you or your designated staff or both need to identify, right? They need to be experts. They need to have a considerable body of travel marketing experience. And so that's entirely your decision. Oftentimes the creative agency partner you hire will make a strong recommendation on which photographer / videographer to hire. There are lots and lots of them, but you want someone who comes with, strong credentials and a high trust factor. So we're not telling you who your agency is. We're not telling you who they're going to recommend as a videographer or who they would recommend as a website developer. Obviously, we offer those services. That's what we've been doing in our careers, but you're not, you haven't hired us to do that yet. So that's entirely your decision. Amanda, did I say that well, or do you want to add anything to that?
No, absolutely. I just, I hope it was clear. We just envision brand development, campaign creative, your photography, videography, your website redesign, those being resources that you would outsource to a creative partner, to Julie's point.
Yeah.
An agency partner.
And that's what everyone does. Very rarely do they tackle those things in-house. It has been done. We all work together at an agency that created a brand campaign for the city of Virginia Beach. We've worked on that for years and years, and they eventually brought that in-house, and it did not go well. I will tell you that. It just is a very hard thing to do, and it requires lots of staff. So just would not recommend that to you as an option.
We don't have a lot of staff. That would,
We understand.
that would not be a good idea.
Exactly.
Yes.
One target audience, a surprise that wasn't in here, and I mean, it's sort of a new one because of the pandemic, which is COVID-19 refugees. I mean, we've seen a real uptick in real estate sales in the second half of 2020. So I was just wondering if you could talk to that, please.
Yeah, let me start there, and Amanda and Rich, feel free to build on that. So you're exactly right. We, we have built that target into the long version of the plan. They're with you already. They're in market. So one of the recommendations in the thick version of the unabridged version would be to have your dedicated staff begin some outreach toward those individuals. I know your real estate agents, your Airbnb hosts and so forth can help you gain access. The folks who are living at the ski area, that's sort of another part and parcel of the same. And to begin some relationship building, because if we can provide, or if I should say, if you can provide quality content for them to begin posting, reaching out to their networks, that's low hanging fruit. That is exactly what you should be doing. And the same with your winter travelers. If we had access to database of folks who have come to Mount Snow to ski and stay overnight, it's just a no-brainer to invite them back in the spring and summer.
Absolutely.
Oh, I like your background picture. So
It's very nice.
that's beautiful.
Hey, did we have any other questions? I know we were trying to get close to 7. Did we have any other questions from select board members or anyone?
Well, I just have one other comment, which is I know you mentioned having sales data included in the dashboard. I think we've attempted that in the past and failed. However, we do have data from both Dover and Wilmington with respect to the taxes that we collect on sales, rooms, and meals. And so that might be a good benchmark to show how this campaign does rather than trying to track down actual sales. Because I think we've tried that in the past and it didn't work too well.
Yes, we were absolutely informed of that effort. So this dashboard, it's a great point and very funny that you bring up, but Gretchen actually warned us that we should maybe call dashboard something else because it may trigger some horrific memories for some. So the dashboard that Rich talked about a bit that's why I wanted to make sure I made a point to say that this is all data that you all will take from it as opposed to put into it. So the dashboard is really just, it tracks your media and how it's resonating. Are people engaging with it? How many click-throughs? How much traffic is it bringing to the website? So that's the kind of data that the dashboard is going to put out. So I promise it is a friendly dashboard and that you don't have to do anything to it or give it anything at all. Rich, did I touch on that in the right way?
Yeah, and there is no shame in having trouble with that back end data. We've had several clients who have trouble with that. And, as we evolve, you can use proxies like you mentioned, John, maybe something that's a little bit easier if we decide to graduate it to that. But I think everyone here makes a great point in terms of, walk before you run, and, let's build it from the ground up, and then, maybe make it a little more, see how much better we can make it and not try to bite off more than we can chew. I think that makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, for bringing that up. I do see a hand raised from Jessica Lee Smith.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was going to say, are you guys building you're doing the coding and building a website from scratch, or are you using something like WordPress?
Good question. So we have a sort of a dedicated web designer, and she outsources the host and the actual web builder based on whatever platform is selected. And in your case, you know, with a modest budget, she would likely go through an established you know, host or software that she can build around. So it has yet to be determined which one that would be. But
Okay, I was just wondering because with programming, you're building from the ground up. I know that I've had WordPress's site before, and it's very inexpensive. I'm just wondering. So, and it comes with a dashboard and all that stuff that keeps account. I'm just wondering what the difference is between like myself if I opened up a WordPress site and something you guys are doing. Is that the same thing?
I think I want to defer to the website developer, the website designer expert. And so she's going to give you a bunch of recommendations. And so I think it's a really important conversation to have. Great question. You know, budget, timing, and the range of what you want to communicate is all going to dictate the best website to use. But your idea of going to a WordPress or a Squarespace or something that's simple may be spot on if it can accommodate everything that you need to put into it. So that's a sort of an ongoing dialogue.
Okay, no, I was just wondering that. And then also, what do you feel like, I mean, for me, you know, in the past when I've worked with social media, I don't really feel like I need trackers because it's kind of, yes, you could have it and you could count that, but in a sense, if you needed to be on a budget, you could cut that off. You don't really, in a town like this, because it's so small, you could see the difference when people start coming. You know what I mean? But are you saying because you want to be able to know that they're coming from this? And how will you know that they're coming from this and not some other marketing campaign in the area?
So I think I may have misheard the joys of technology and internet connection. Were you saying trackers, like tracking?
Yeah, you were saying tracking, like to tell you know that count the stuff that comes with the WordPress site. You know where it tells you how many people visit, how many people. So what type of track? You said we have to hire somebody from outside to do the tracking, right?
Okay, so what we're talking about is I think two different sorts of tracking. So we can currently track your web traffic. You're totally correct. We already know, can tell you, you know, how many people came from Facebook, how many people came from Instagram into your website. But what I was talking about in terms of when I think you're referring to when I was discussing primary indicators and how we're able to tell that, you know, we marketed to a certain person and that person actually showed up in the destination. Is that what you mean?
Well, no, yeah, the tracking, like, yeah, with that, because I know that another way that it could be done is, you know, through, let's say, a coupon. So if you're on that site, you say, use this code, you know, and you get such and such percentage off of whatever, like a marketing thing, you choose what that is. And then that incentivizes them to come in. And, you know, when they use that coupon, that's how you know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
that's absolutely one way.
no?
Well, that's absolutely one way for sure that we could. It's an additional tracking layer. But I'll ask you to think about, you know, sort of the different ways, you know, when you're looking to book a vacation to some, you know, some far off destination somewhere. It's quite possible that you could be, you know, online searching around. You decide the destination. You decide when you want to go. You book your trip. You book your hotel, and then you just kind of go and you show up. You don't know anybody there. Maybe you didn't actually stumble upon that destination's website, so you don't have the coupon, but your choice to travel to that destination was still influenced by whatever banner ad or Facebook ad you happened upon, right? So I would actually argue that that's probably the experience of most consumers, and so we'll miss so many people if we just singularly, you know, rely on coupons and different.
I know. I was just wondering how you would know the other people if you weren't using something like that. That's what I was trying to figure out. Unless it was you're talking about when it's built into the WordPress thing.
Oh no! So that's the beauty of these different companies that I showed during our presentation under the primary indication slide, because we don't need people to go to our website for us to know that our campaign reached them in some way on one of the platforms that Rich walked us through. And then they actually booked a hotel there in Market.
Are you talking about the social media platforms?
It could be through social media that we market to them. It could be through different display and banner ads as they navigate the internet. There's, there's all
Okay, no,
different.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I was just thinking that, that, it already, that doesn't that come with the ads on Facebook? When you pay those ads, they tell you how many people it reached.
They do, yes, but we don't know how many people that were reached actually came to Dover or Wilmington and stayed the weekend. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how you would know the other ones though.
So that's to my earlier point. If we were to make the additional investment and partner with, one of these companies that I had, earlier on in the presentation, we can partner with them, have access to their data, and they're able to actually let us know through a variety of means, but most of them are location tracking on cell phones. So,
Okay, but how is that for, like, meaning privacy? Is that then gonna sell everybody's information to those people? So then they have, how they do that tracking thing now where you're supposed to turn it off?
Right.
Where if you work with them, then they get everybody's information here that puts their email in there. And a lot of people here are not comfortable with that for privacy reasons.
Nope, we're definitely not, stealing people's information and trying to sell it
No,
to anyone.
not you.
or-
I'm saying those companies, the companies that do ads.
Yeah, no, that's not the point here. The point is just to figure out whether or not the dollars that we're spending to market our valley and our community are driving the people here to come and stay and eat and shop and do those things. So we're not interested in farming their information. We're not looking for a company to do that, nor would we, actively let a company do that. We're literally just trying to track whether the dollars we're spending as Dover and Wilmington are bringing people to the valley to spend their money.
Maybe we could move and see if anybody else had any other questions. And this is still a long way away from a lot of this touch point. So maybe we could see if there's anybody else who has another question, or we can wrap up the meeting
Yeah,
because we are over.
For
We're
sure.
almost 15 minutes over.
Yep. Were there any other questions quickly? Okay. I see Tony Tribuno saying no, so we should be all set.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much to Julie and Amanda and Rich for joining us tonight and for going through the program with us. Really appreciate all your hard work. And thank you to the select boards for taking the time to join us to listen to the presentation.
So I would like to call to close the Dover Select Board meeting at 7:13 tonight.
I will follow with the Wilmington Select Board. All those in favor, in fact, to adjourn, say aye.
Aye. Oh, that's not me.
I just closed it. That I didn't.
Yeah,
make
yeah.
it.
I didn't vote.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
guys.
everybody.
Oh my God,
Thank you.
oh my God, protocol being all going to hell here tonight. All right, and it's closed.
We're closed, baby.
Second eye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.